Y'all, we are back. We have the legend himself, A.R. Shaw. He's been like our Kendrick whisperer, if you will, for the past for the past year, man. AR, bro, when he first dropped this album, what were you
Yeah.
thinking?
Oh, GNX. I mean, it was a surprise, man. I think
Yes.
he dropped it I think it was like at 10 a.m. or something. It was regular weekday morning, and then it's
Yep.
just like I got this notification of this trailer of GNX, and I'm just like, damn, what's going on? And I start doing all the searches, and I realized it's an album, and yeah, man, that's the first thing I did. I was like, man, I gotta check it out. So I stopped whatever I was doing. I don't even remember what I was doing, but stopped what I was doing and listened to the album.
Yeah.
Start to finish, just straight, just listen to it. And yeah, man, it's heat.
It
It's
is. It is. It is, bro. And playing the album, playing it like over and over again. I just think that, people, all the Drake lovers, and again, I'm a Drake fan, but all the people that would be like heavy on Drake's side, they would try to say, well, Kendrick, he can't make like a good body of work that's fun, entertaining, but it's still like meaningful as well. But on this one, it felt like, damn, where he came out with all the slaps. Like the first song came out with it, boom. And then Luther, now he got you on TikTok. Like everybody's playing that on TikTok, bro. Just like I would just say from just like a strategy standpoint, did you feel like Kendrick made sure that he had quote unquote slaps on his album so then people can't try to like knock him in that field as well?
Yeah, I think every like album Kendrick has some type of theme to it. And
Mm,
initially I was just like, this doesn't really feel like a theme. Kind of I think when you listen to a Kendrick album, it kind of like when you first listen, it's like, oh, I know what the theme is. Like Good Kid, Mad City, you knew it was a theme. It kind of felt like almost like a movie. It felt
right.
like a new edition of Boys in the Hood.
Mm,
You knew that To Pimp a Butterfly was kind of like almost like a poem, and it was like Pac having these interludes of well, he's saying this poem to Pac. So that was a major thing, and then following To Pimp a Butterfly, damn, that had like a lot of cohesion to it. And then Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers was all about mental health and pretty much trying to figure out himself. And so you have several type of themes that's happening with his other albums. With this album, initially I was like, this doesn't really feel like a theme. But then when I thought about it, I'm like, okay, this is really like it feels like old school LA. If you ever
yeah.
went to a LA house party or they call them functions, this is the type of music that you will listen to whether it's like, Squabble Up, the Slaps, Luther. I realized, I don't know if you saw The Best Man. Have you ever saw not The Best Man, but it's not The Best Man, it's
The Wood? Are you thinking about the Wood?
Wood, that's it.
Yeah, I already knew
So,
where you was going. Yeah.
yeah, you already know where I'm going. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
the Luther uses it's a song in that dance, they're having a dance, middle school dance, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's that same song. So it kind of feels like it's a lot of nostalgia. You know what I'm saying? A lot of LA
Yeah.
West Coast nostalgia. And so I think that's kind of like the theme of GNX. It just feels
Yeah.
like old school West Coast LA. A lot of those beats too are like 80s, 90s beats. He goes back to SWV
Mm-hmm.
with the Heart Part Six, which he took back from Drake.
Yep.
And so yeah, I mean, I think when I really got a chance to just like sleep on it, it feels like uh an ode to old school LA, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. And man, you saying that, Sid used the exact words verbatim. She's a big Kendrick fan, and she said, "Bro, this feels like a real ode to LA." And everything
Yeah,
that you just said, she said, the same sentiment. Hearing the
yeah,
album as well, everything was crazy. TV off, that of course, going crazy as well. And then now of just seeing how Drake has like reacted to this, because I think for once, and not even for once, because I can't even knock Kendrick on that. Kendrick
yeah,
has now obliterated any other person that's now trying to come to that throne. And now he's dominated on social media all year. TV off, even right now, just with Screaming Mustard, that alone
oh yeah,
dominates, right?
yeah.
How do you feel about Drake's reaction to having to take this L for a prolonged period of time where Kendrick is not putting his foot off his neck? How do you feel about Drake's reaction to facing adversity for the first time?
Man, he's doing a horrible job. He's
Yeah.
but you know what's interesting, man? It was like, I mean, we've been talking about this thing for like 6 months, it seems like. And I know in our initial conversation, I was basically just saying that Drake should just step away, don't
You
respond. I
did.
think that was my initial thing is like, don't respond to like that. Like I was just like, he didn't really have to respond to it. Like it wasn't
Mm,
really something. I think Kendrick did put out the bait. He like dangled some bait in his face just to see if he would take it. And Drake stupidly he took it. And I think Kendrick knew that he was going to take it. But I think it wasn't to me. Um, it wasn't really like it was a lot of subliminal shots
yeah.
and like that. And it was just like, okay, we know who he's talking about. We know who he's talking to. But it could have continued with like a lot of subliminals. It didn't really have to go to like the land of like rap battle. It didn't have to go that far. And Drake he pushed it there, and then like we see the consequences of his actions, and it's just like I said, I think I said this analogy before. It's like that kid who your parents tell you like, don't mess with the beehive. There's a beehive right there. Don't
Mm,
mess with it. And then as a kid, you take a stick and then you hit the beehive, and then all of a sudden it's like you stung up, and now you don't. Now you got to go to the hospital, or you go see your lawyer, whatever's
mm.
first. Yeah.
There we go. Yeah, man, this whole lawsuit, AR, I know everybody's probably been blowing you up, but from your own journalistic experience, what do you think about this UMG lawsuit? Of course, both of them are signed to Universal Music Group, which a lot of people now are just finding out, but music fans already been put on game. But what is the overall significance of this UMG lawsuit, especially coming from Drake, which I find kind of weird, AR, of Drake talking about bots. Again, I love Drake, but it's like Drake, you've been hitting ones and you really think that Lucian wasn't using bots. But how do you feel about that?
Man, I was shocked. It's not a lawsuit, it's a legal motion, which
Mm,
basically like it's like the first before you file a lawsuit, you have to um put a motion in terms of
mm-hmm,
this is what I'm going to do next. And so it's kind of like a legal filing that he put
mm-hmm.
in place. Two legal files that he put in place in regards to not like us, which could lead to a lawsuit. But he hasn't filed a lawsuit yet. But what's happening now is just like both sides are kind of like trying to figure things out. And then once Drake's team, his lawyers get, I guess, the evidence that they're looking for, they're gonna file a lawsuit. When I first saw it, I thought it was a joke because I think we're in an era now and just with social media that people lie so much that it's kind of hard to kind of like you have to kind of like do your research. And well, you have to do your research pretty much all the time. I mean that like case in point, like I'm gonna kind of float away but then come back to it over the weekend, like there's this there's this headline saying that the NFL is going to replace Kendrick Lamar with Lil Wayne
Right.
because of the lawsuit. And it's just such a weird article to put out, and a lot of people are sharing it. It went viral. I think the source was Media Takeout, and we know that Media Takeout is just known for just like frivolous gossip. But
Yeah.
people ran with it, and so I initially when Drake when I saw that about Drake, I was like, oh, this is a law. This is fake. Nobody's like no one would ever do that, right? Um, I know that Drake, I know that Drake is not of the culture at all, but this type of move, I was like, man, this dude is really like making a mockery of us.
Yeah.
And I think that was like the first thing I thought about. I wrote an article on Atlanta Daily World just kind of describing how he's pretty much made a mockery of hip hop with this legal action. I compare him to that breakdancer. I think her name was like Ray Gunn from Australia.
Yeah, she was terrible
Yeah, the
during the
people who
Olympics.
during the Olympics, it was a white woman named Ray Gunn who had
Yeah.
zero skills or credibility to be a breakdancer, but she was able to get on stage because somewhere in Australia she was a part of the selection committee, and with her being a part of the selection committee, she basically selected herself. Uh, got on stage in front of a world audience and basically made a mockery of hip hop culture. And I'm like, Drake is doing the same thing. Like Drake,
Yes.
with legal action, he's making a mockery of everything that hip hop stands for. And he's just like, I don't care. You know what I'm saying? It's just like he's basically used the resources and everything, the credibility that the culture has provided for him. And he's basically like It's all he's like Christopher Columbus. He's like hip hop's Christopher
Mm,
Columbus. Like he's taking the resources, he's leaving, and after he's gotten all the resources, all the fans, mess with all of the black women, mess with their heads. He's done all this stuff behind people's back, and now he's gonna like basically could turn the culture on its head from a legal standpoint because now it's like now if I get if a rapper feels like he's being dissed or disrespected on an album, he can call his lawyer and say,
mm.
uh, you know, it's just a very sketchy and you know, I don't think it's I don't think it's well advised, but it shows the type of person that he really is.
Yeah, man, because AR, just from seeing this, for myself especially, like I remember when Drake first started like coming onto the scene, I was like maybe in the sixth or seventh grade. And it's like now being 27
Yeah.
and seeing Drake from so many different phases. And it's like, I remember, man, I was just driving in the car. I'm on one, it was playing. And I was like, dang, hearing that Drake talk about being young. And it hit me. Oh, he can't handle growing up. Because in that song, hearing him talking about I'm young, and it's like his whole identity was based on I'm the young kid in hip hop and
Yeah.
taking the throne. But it's like now, latter 30s, it's like he can't handle you're not the young hot thing anymore. And then seeing Kendrick even in the album saying, "Hey, to all the young dudes, let me be that representation for you of like what you should be." And seeing him having his girl, having his children, we don't see that with Drake. So, do you think that right now during this time, what do you think Drake's mental health state probably is right now, AR, if you had to guess from afar?
Well, I'm gonna go back to your first point of him just like his failure to mature.
Yeah.
That's a thing, and I think I mean, even rap is something that where traditionally, unfortunately, like artists haven't been able to mature. Like for
Hmm.
whatever reason, it's one of those genres where you usually get the average rapper usually get like a 4 or 5 year run, and
Yeah.
after they, people are looking for the next new thing because it breeds off of newness. What's going to be next? Who's going to be the next unique voice that's going to like add to the culture? So that's very heavy in hip hop. And I think for Drake, because you got to understand, Drake doesn't really come from a place. Now, and I've said this in our previous podcast, is that he doesn't come from anywhere. Like he's like even with him being in Toronto from Toronto, you still don't feel like he represents Toronto. You just feel like he's just this guy who kind of he gravitates towards to other cultures. And so it's just like whatever he can gravitate towards, he's gonna like latch on to, and then he'll find a way to kind of profit off of it and then move on. And so for that, yeah, he can't grow up because it's just like he has no other place, he has nowhere to go. You see what I'm saying? So it's like even like you got someone like an Ice Cube who just put out an album last week. That's pretty good. He put out an album and but Ice Cube still comes from a place. And so
Mm.
Ice Cube is past 50 years old, but he's still talking about the place that he comes from. And it still resonates in a sense to the people who like his music. I'm not sure if like
Mm.
any younger art listeners are really checking for Cube, but at the same time, a lot of people grew up with Cube, and a lot of people his age and around that age range can relate to some of the things that he's talking about because he comes from a place. And I think what your point is that yeah, Drake, he never was able to mature past what youth culture is because it's like he has no nothing to fall back on.
Mm.
Uh, and so we seen him spiral. And yeah, I think from a mental health standpoint, man, he's definitely he's losing it. It's just like
Yeah.
he's never been in this position before. Even with the Meek, even with not Meek, but even with the Pusha T battle,
Mm.
he was able to kind of like go from the Pusha T battle and then kind of continue to like make music, make hits. And if you think about like the Pusha T battle didn't really resonate beyond hip hop. Like it kind of stayed within the hip hop realm versus not like us is an international hit. It's like global. It's a global phenomenon. And then, I just think that Drake never prepared to be like outdone, outwitted in this manner.
Yeah, for sure. Kendrick, man, again, AR playing this album, I was very impressed. Where do you think in Kendrick's catalog that this ranks in? We don't have to be prisoners of the moment and scream instant classic like how most people do at midnight, right when it drops, but
Yeah.
whether it ranks among Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers, Butterfly, Damn, which is my personal favorite, where do you think this probably ranks amongst Kendrick's great catalog?
Man, it's hard to tell right now because it's just like you said, we sometimes we are like prisoners or victims of the moment where we're just like,
Yeah.
oh, like the greatest thing ever or whatever. But I think all of his albums kind of stand alone. I kind of compare him to like Outkast in the sense
Mm,
where it's like Outkast, each album had its own theme, and each album kind of stands alone. Whereas like Southern Playalistic didn't really sound like AT Aliens didn't sound like Stankonia, didn't sound like Aquemini. It didn't, and then Equipment I didn't sound like the Love Below Speaker, but like so
yeah.
Outkast within their run, every project had its own feel and theme to it. And I think some,
Mm,
as fans, we kind of like what we like in terms of which album resonates the most. But I think this is going to be the same way with Kendrick in terms of just uh him being able to kind of create these bodies of work that kind of stand alone. Like GNX doesn't sound like any other album that Kendrick has ever done.
yeah.
And people thought it was a mixtape because of the vibes on it. I don't think it's a mixtape. Initially, I thought it was like it was a mixtape, and I had to think about it again. I'm like, no, this is really an album. This is really an album. So like I said, I think it's a tribute to West Coast culture and like just like what it means to be on the West Coast, to like living on the West Coast. Uh, and so for right now, for me, I think. I like every album, so it's hard for me to
Yeah.
pick one. I probably would pick To Pimp a Butterfly because it was just so pro-black.
Yeah,
Like,
it was.
like was just like so pro-black. I just felt like it was just an album for black people. Like it's like one of the best albums for black people. And so for me, I would pick To Pimp a Butterfly as his best. But I like all of them. I think this
Mhm.
one, I can't really. I'm not gonna like rank it right now. But sonically this might be the best Sonic album in
I think
terms of
so too.
beats and like the production is just like hard hitting. It's like an album you put in your car and you just ride to.
Yep.
Or you
Hey, I've been
let
doing that all week.
I'm saying like yeah, so it's like you can ride to it or you can like, it has a lot of party joints too. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So it's like a lot of songs that's like sonically just it's just sonically appealing.
Yes, sir. On that standpoint too, bro, hearing you talk about Pepper Butterfly, who was so pro-black, I think, man, for Kendrick, for me especially, I
Yeah.
love black culture. I love our culture, our history. And I think that Kendrick is one of the very few artists that's actually embodied pro-blackness, but
Mhm.
still making bangers, but it's still deep, it's still lyrical miracle, like what some people say.
For
But like,
sure.
how do you think Kendrick constantly pulls this off? Because Drake even tried to, which was a nail in the coffin for him, say Kendrick's trying to free the slaves. How do you think Kendrick has paired pro-blackness with still being efficient as a rapper, which is very hard to do?
Yeah, no, that's a trick because it's like you're right. Like usually artists who are pro-black or super pro-black, super conscious, it's hard for them to sell records. It's hard for them to kind of break out of that that niche market, like that niche market. It's just, for whatever reason, Jay-Z, he had a line years ago. He
Mm,
said, if truth sold lyrically, I'll be Talib Kweli.
yeah,
I want to rap like common sense, but I made so and so millions and I haven't rap like common sense.
common sense. Yep.
So yeah, so Jay-Z was basically alluding to like a lot of the conscious rappers who he would want to be like, but it was like he knew it wasn't like marketable. He knew it wasn't just marketable to kind of just strictly be like a Talib Kweli who and Common who were both like super conscious back in the 90s and early 2000s. But Kendrick is gifted in a way where he understands he understands how to touch people's emotions, right?
Mm,
More so it's in the sense where it's like I'm gonna make you like bob your head, but then at the same time I'm gonna give you some type of nugget to go with it. And I don't think he's all the way conscious either because he has a lot of gangster in him too.
yep.
Like, this is a very violent album. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of violence in this album, but his violence is almost biblical, where he
Mm,
almost feels like he's like doing this for a greater cause, which is very interesting because it's just like, when we hear violence in music, whatever, it's usually violence for the sake of violence, where his violence almost seems spiritual in a sense. like almost like he's doing some type of cleanse or uh, you know, trying to, create a new society with this violence, and he alludes to a lot of what happened in the Bible in terms of just, a lot of destruction, and but that destruction is used to kind of cleanse in a sense. And so we hear that. And so yeah, man, I think he's definitely gifted in the sense that he's able to do both, in terms of being conscious and also having a knack for, all right, I'm gonna make a song that you're gonna love when you hear it in the club, like TV off and squabble up. Like those,
Hmm.
it's like we gonna like we thought that not like us is still like people like the bands are still playing not like us, but we're gonna hear like TV off and squabble up for like the next 6 months. So you know what I'm saying? So because it just got that vibe to it, and then you're gonna hear it over the summer because it to me when I heard it, I'm like, man, this feels like an album for the summer. Um, and in LA, it's always summer. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You could always have a block party in LA because the weather is always nice. And so uh, it feels like one of those summer vibe albums.
Yeah. Nah, man, you're right because I think I saw a clip, somebody sent it to me. Grambling State was already performing songs off the album. So I was like, Drake, you were cooked, my friend, you were done. And AR, bro, you actually said something that was very poignant too about the Bible. I think about a person, King David, who came in slaughtering folks that a lot of people don't really, talk about. King David, he was very violent. But I think about Kendrick, like he's coming in. He said, I had enough. It's my time to actually take the throne. And I see Kendrick doing that. And I also think about a nip where a person could be extremely conscious, but when it's time to get violent and slap somebody at the BET Awards, they don't
Yeah.
mind doing that. What do you think is about these LA dudes where they could be extremely conscious, but then when it's time to quote unquote squabble up, they can still do that too? What do you think makes them so strong, but then so conscious as well?
Well, you got to think about the West Coast, man. That's where the Panthers were founded,
Very
Oakland.
true.
You know what I'm saying? So it's just like there's a lot of similarities to what the Black Panthers represented in terms of being conscious and being violent if needed.
Mhm.
A lot of the Panthers' philosophies came from Malcolm X, and Malcolm X was like that. By any means necessary, we gotta, protect our families, protect our communities. But at the same time, Malcolm X was conscious in a sense, in a sense of like, this is how you raise your kids. This is how you live a healthy lifestyle. This is how you fight back against oppression. So these are like the tools that came from Malcolm, and then it was adopted by the Black Panthers. And so you saw like from the Black Panthers, they got to the West Coast first. And so the Black Panthers, of course, they had the free breakfast programs, giving back to the community, for kids, things of that nature. And so you saw that the Black Panthers were doing a lot of things for the Black community just on their own, not taking handouts. They were coming together on their own and working to make a better community. But at the same time, it's like they really embraced their Second Amendment rights to bear arms. And the Black Panthers went up into the state, to the California Capitol with guns, with,
Mhm.
with rifles. And so it shows you that, that type of protection, that's where it comes from, I think, in terms of the West Coast, where it's like, yeah, a lot of these, there's violence, but at the same time, they're still, down for the community, down for the cause in a lot of ways. So for me, I think that's kind of like where they get that from. They get that from the Panthers and things of that nature. And unfortunately, the Panthers, they were infiltrated by the FBI, and a lot of things occurred in terms of having them go against each other. A lot of the Panthers, went against each other. You had a lot of informants within the Panthers that was infiltrated by the
Mhm.
FBI that turned them against each other. And so, that organization failed for a reason. And then following the Black Panthers, you see not necessarily the same community, but you see these organizations that kind of like tilted more towards violence, like the Bloods and the Crips. Uh, but the Bloods and the Crips initially they were created to protect communities. Then all of a sudden you see the violent element that came into play. So yeah, I think the West Coast has a different type of, particularly Black culture in West Coast has a different history that kind of makes a guy like Kendrick or a Nipsey who have they're edgy, but at the same time they're kind of like fighting for a greater cause.
For sure. AR, is it safe to say that the West Coast is back? How do you feel?
It just depends. I think it's hard to say because it's like when you say back, Kendrick has always been here. Like Kendrick has been
True.
around for the past 12 years.
Yeah.
He's really like consistent for the past 12 years. He's been consistent now. Everyone else that hasn't really like manifested for everybody else in terms of, yeah, you've had like a few artists that's come from the West, like a Roddy Ricch,
Hmm.
Schoolboy Q.
Yeah.
So they've had like pockets, but it's kind of hard when you think of like Atlanta's run in terms of
Yeah.
Atlanta's like 20 plus year run.
Yeah.
It's hard to compare because it's just like Atlanta hip hop artists. I mean, it's just you at any time there's at least 10 Atlanta rappers that are relevant. I
Yeah.
don't know if there's
Yeah.
10 LA artists that are relevant right now. And it's about 4 or 5 that you could say like really like doing it really from a popularity standpoint right now. In Atlanta, I can name 10 that could sell out a concert right now, uh,
Yeah.
at least. So,
Yeah.
and then Thug is home. So that's
Yeah.
another person you got to add to the list. So it's just
Yeah.
like, yeah, I don't know if the West Coast is back, but I think Kendrick kind of stands alone in the sense that he kind of keeps them relevant.
Hmm. Nah, for sure. Because man, hearing GNX and people talking all throughout social media, seeing all the younger artists that Kendrick that he was putting on. But what do you think happened, AR? Because if we go back to the 90s, we got everything. You got Death Row. Like the list keeps going on and on with the Pots, the Snoops, Corrupt. Like we just keep going and going and going. But then now it's like, yeah, Kendrick, he's always been there, but like seeing that total infrastructure, we don't see that anymore. Kendrick, he even spoke about it. I think it was on the Heart Part Six, if I'm not mistaken, about Black Hippie basically halting because of him. Like he was focused on other creative projects. But here in Atlanta, like with a thug, you start seeing a gunna coming along. You start seeing baby like all these artists, but then it's just like on the West Coast, you got the big dog Kendrick, but like other than that, everything else is kind of missing. What happened on the West Coast in your own opinion, AR?
Man, that's an interesting question because you're right. Like in the 90s, the West Coast had it, man. Like, Pac, Snoop. I mean, these were like they weren't just like they were like international artists. Like Snoop, I
Yeah.
think he sold like 4 million albums his first week. All Eyes on Me with
And
Tupac
that's
sold
hard copies. That's
these are
insane.
hard copies of CDs. Pac sold like 5 million with All Eyes on Me. So like they were like making so much money that like, before like even before New York became popular in terms of just like making mega hits, it was the West Coast first. Like first it was MC Hammer like selling a lot of
Mm,
records, and then went down to like LA's. So it was just like the West Coast had it for like in terms of record sales, just like for a long time. Um, I think with the West Coast, I think I would probably say that a lot of it got stagnant in terms of just the creative aspect of it. You start hearing like I don't know, just artists that didn't really, I don't know, they didn't really move the needle, I think, in a sense. And so until you get a Kendrick and then TDE, like it's like
yeah.
TDE, they didn't really, to me, TDE didn't really sound West Coast. It just sounded like they were making like really good music. And when I first heard Kendrick, he sounded like he was from Atlanta. I was just like, man, this dude, he has a lot of like Outkast and Erykah Badu influence. Like I
Yeah.
just heard it. I heard a lot of Southern influence in what Kendrick was doing. And so I think he kind of stood out with that. Um, and then also just, I think the partnering in Atlanta. I think with Atlanta, a lot of the artists really just work with each other for the most part. I mean, you got a few disagreements here and there, but for the most part, it's like uh, most of the artists here kind of build each other up. I think that's something that was different from New York. I think that was a reason why New York failed is because everybody was beefing in New York at a time, like in the early 2000s. New York, they were all beefing against each other, and then next thing you know, they fell off. But I think Atlanta has always been like very welcoming to each other in terms of just the creative space. Artists working with each other, like producers working with each other. And so I think that commonality of what it means to be in Atlanta, that networking kind of transfers to music and in other businesses and like businesses and things of that nature. So I just think Atlanta is a different space where it's just like it kind of promotes collaboration, where other cities don't really promote collaboration as much, if that makes
Yeah,
sense.
no, for sure. What do you think is Kendrick's or why do you think he has such a reverence for the city of Atlanta? Because to your point, you can hear that Southern Atlanta influence. One of the songs, of course, everybody knows the famous line, "Starting to see spaceships in Bankhead," and Kendrick, he used that
Oh,
same line, but then he personalized it for LA, of course. And then
yeah.
hearing that, driving in the car, working out at the gym earlier this morning, I heard that line. I was like, "Hold on, Kendrick, okay." And then, of course, not like us, he's giving us a whole Atlanta history lesson. He didn't have to do that. Why do you think Kendrick loves Atlanta so much?
I think he respects it. I think he respects what Atlanta represents. Like I say, I think he pays attention to it. And I think he likes the blackness of Atlanta. Like Atlanta it represents a lot in terms of just being black in a creative space. Um, and yeah, that nugget that he put in. Starting to see spaceships on Rose Grand. Now
Yeah.
it's a nugget though, because it's just like if you don't know, if you didn't listen to D4L in the early 2000s, you don't know what he's talking about. But it is a nod to people who know what he's talking about. I guess a straight, I'm giving a shout out to Fabo in a way. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? He's, for real, it's just like, yeah, it's just like
Yeah.
I'm letting you know that I'm paying attention to what's happening. Um, and yeah, I think he, that line on Not Like Us, that whole passage, he created a whole verse giving you an Atlanta history, an Atlanta history lesson, just lets you know that he's in tune outside of just his own community. And
Mhm.
that's something that to be an artist, I think you have to really be able to do that in a way that's not disrespectful, right?
Right.
Um, and so, yeah, I think Kendrick sees what's happening in Atlanta, the power of Atlanta culture, and I think that that's something that he respects.
Yes, sir. Why should we appreciate Kendrick more? Because I think for so long, AR, and I wouldn't even say everybody because we've had people that have always respected Kendrick, loved Kendrick, but I would say for once in the public zeitgeist, if you will, everybody's now starting to see, oh, Kendrick is that dude. Why should we appreciate Kendrick more during this current moment in time?
Yeah, I mean, you only have a few artists who that can resonate and then still kind of represent in the right way. There's a lot of artists who can resonate and don't really represent. We saw that with Drake. Like Drake is like he's still like the biggest selling rapper in over the past decade. Even with this hit that he's taken, he's still number one in terms of sales.
Yeah.
But we found out that Drake doesn't really he doesn't really rock with the culture. And so Kendrick he represents blackness, and I think um, it's an interesting thing. And like it's so much that's being discussed right now. Particularly what was happening with the TV show Atlanta. They had
Mm,
several they had several things that kind of like hinted at what's happening right now with Drake. The first one it was an episode where Drake was supposed to be at this party, and all these women they showed up at this mansion party, and then they found out that it wasn't Drake. Drake wasn't there, but it was a cardboard cutout of Drake, and, and
yeah.
these girls were like taking pictures next to this cardboard cutout of Drake. But Atlanta was saying something on a deeper level that's just like, yo, like this dude isn't real. It's just not real.
Mm,
Like, it's a lot of fun. And, Donald Glover and Drake, they had their back and forths too, but there was a lot of like hidden nuggets in those episodes. There's another episode where they talk about this thing called uh, young white avatar. And
wow.
basically a young white avatar is a white rapper who's able to infiltrate the culture and then sell a lot of records, like a Post Malone, like a Vanilla Ice. And they do it, it's a whole like play on this whole thing. Is you got to get you a young white avatar, someone who can talk and act black, but then they're not really for the culture, but it's like you really selling this to a larger fan base. And then when you think about it, that's kind of what Drake was, right? Like Drake even though he does have like his father and his uncle like Larry Graham is one of the best musicians ever. Like Larry Graham is like I'm talking about top notch. He's played with Prince. He's played with pretty much any like top notch musician from the 70s and the 80s. That's Drake's uncle. But at the same time, it's like he didn't grow up in that. He didn't grow up in Memphis. He grew up in Canada, uh, and in a community that's I'm sure majority white. So he doesn't really have that like I said, he doesn't have that backing. That he doesn't have that culture. Um, and just going back to your original point, Kendrick does have that. I think Kendrick represents something that hopefully he can change the space of the next generation, the artists who are coming up. Hopefully, because hip hop is like the only art form, and maybe R&B. Hip hop and R&B is like the only art form that hasn't been taken over by other cultures in terms of the mainstream success. Every other genre has been taken over by other cultures. The blues was taken over. The blues is basically rock and roll.
Yeah.
So they basically took the blues and they created and turned and named it rock and roll, which is became a majority white genre. Country comes from the blues.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
they got country and then they kind of slowed it down a bit, but country music is from the blues. You look at jazz music, jazz music isn't totally black anymore. So hip hop is like the last real black genre that you know that really black people could control in terms of the creativity of it. Um, and so yeah, hopefully this wakes people up. It's just like, man, we can't just let anybody in. We can't just let anybody get our attention because they sing well. Because because black women think this guy looks good. He has a Caesar cut and he he can sing to you. No, man, this guy's just like, man, he really showed that he's not like I won't say not like us, but he's just someone who basically took the genre for granted. Like I say, he's Christopher Columbus in a sense where he basically uh, got what he wanted from rap and then left, and he's leaving. This is his exit plan to get out of hip hop. So
Wow.
uh, someone like a Kendrick is definitely important. We got to continue to like to not to support to support Kendrick and artists like Kendrick if we want hip hop to survive.
Mm, that's heavy, brother, because hearing that, right, I think about a piano lesson that came out on
Oh yeah.
Netflix where, it talks about us being connected to our ancestors and us having a very specific experience here in America as Black people.
Mhm.
What do you think when it comes to our people here in America? Because I think with Drake and Kendrick, it shows that difference where Kendrick has roots in the South and he takes his blackness way more serious. Why do you think blackness and us being us, our culture means so much for Black Americans?
Um, I mean, that's all we have really. Like black culture is like our best export, right? I guess
Mm,
I mean, in terms of black people, like there's two things that kind of keep us not being totally eliminated, and that's our culture and sports. Like, we understand that, and like I said, the larger majority they understand too the importance of black people in sports, right? Like you can't have a basketball team without black people. You can't have a football team without black people, right? And so it's like in essence, our ability to produce in those sense is still valuable and is like one of our valuable traits in terms of how we exist in America. It's not this like this for all black people around the world, but particularly for black Americans, is sports and culture. Culture in a sense is that we pretty much shape what it was what's about to be next. Whatever's about to be next, it's come from a black person, whether it's language, whether it's the music, whether it's the dress. We pretty much capitalize off of all of that in terms of just how we produce things of that nature. And so those are like our culture is like the most valuable thing to us, for us. It's just like that's what we have that pretty much gives us an edge over most other groups. and kind of keeps us together in a sense. It allows us to share stories with each other. But and again, like I said, it keeps us valuable in a sense. And I hate that it's that way. I hate that it's just not our intelligence that keeps us around, or our ability to, get a job based on our skills. It's our culture. And you talk about like DEI, I'm kind of just going on, but I'm just thinking about
Hmm.
some things. But Walmart, I think last week, Walmart basically said that they're going to get rid of diversity, equity, and inclusion in terms of what in their hiring practices, and just basically the overall company. Now, it's interesting. It's just like, okay, they know Trump is he's elected, he's about to be president. He's totally against diversity, equity, and inclusion when it doesn't happen to him, because if we look at the people that he's hired so far, these are like hires that these people they're not, I mean, they're totally incompetent. Just like
Yeah.
him. He's an incompetent
Head of
person.
the FBI, it's a guy with no
Him,
experience
yeah, so I mean, none
criminal
of these people
justice.
have
Yeah.
experience, but it's like,
Yeah.
oh, when it comes to a black person, they only got their job because they're black.
Yep.
Well, these people in Trump's administration only got their job because they kissed up to him. And
Yep.
so we see in this thing that it's not reality. But if you make they've planted seeds that if anything helps black people in any form of fashion, that the black person got it undeservingly, right?
Mm.
But we only see that when it comes to business. We only see it when it comes to corporation. Let's just try that on the football field. Let's try that on the basketball field. Take diversity, equity, and inclusion away from all college sports. If you're going to get rid of diversity, equity, and inclusion at the schools or at the state level, let's take away from sports. Like, no black, don't let any black kid play for your school. Like,
True.
you know, let's just see this experiment. Let's have this grand experiment of taking all the athletes off of these white schools, these predominantly white institutions. Let's take away all the black and let's put them to HBCUs. Let's make sure
Mhm.
that the top talent go to Grambling, go to Southern, go to Morehouse. Um, whether best Clark Atlanta, FAMU. Let's make sure
Yeah.
all the black talent goes to HBCUs instead of these PWIs. Let's see where we at. Let's see where you at. Let's see how much funding you can get from your schools when you have only one demo representing. Because that's what they want. They want one in terms of the overall theme when it comes to business, when it comes to education. They only want one group to benefit from that. But when it comes to sports, oh, it's okay. We can be diverse when it comes to sports.
Yeah.
When it comes to anything else, oh, you only got this because of your color, your skin color. We gotta like get rid of that. So that's my major thing. My main thing is just like, come on, like um, I forgot your original question. I kind of went on a
Nah,
tangent.
AR, bro, you cooking. Hey, I'm listening to you. You
But
good.
no, I
You
mean,
good.
yeah,
I'm just listening.
it's just yeah, it's just interesting that we have like all of these people trying to get rid of DEI, but from a business and education standpoint, but they won't get rid of DEI when it comes to sports. I want them to get rid of DEI when it comes to sports too. I don't
Mm.
want you. I don't want you to have no black athletes. I don't want you to have any black running backs. No black wide receivers. I don't want you to have a black cornerback, defensive end, linebacker, safety. I just wanted it to be just how you wanted to be in terms of business and education. You want to get rid of DEI, get rid of DEI on the athletic field. So, I mean, that's just kind of just my spiel on that. Yeah, to kind
Listen, hey, Jerry Jones, he wouldn't like that. But on that standpoint, you are completely right, though, because if you think about it in the music industry and the sports industry, it's just
of.
like the cotton field all over again. Like they don't mind us picking the cotton, but when it comes towards ownership, we can't touch those things at all. AR, man, you've been phenomenal once again, bro. One more question for you, too. What do you think the Super Bowl halftime show looks like with Kendrick? Because we know Kendrick is super pro-black, and I think Kendrick has a few tricks up his sleeves.
Yeah,
New Orleans, beautiful black city. What do you think Kendrick has up his sleeve for the Super Bowl in New Orleans in February?
man, it's hard to tell, man, because like I know it's gonna be theater. Like I say, his shows are like theater. It's like you actually going to like a Broadway show when you watching Ken.
Right.
Um, And I hear people say, yeah, it's just interesting. Like, prior to this album that came out, people like, yeah, I don't ride around listening to Kendrick, you know. And it's only like it's usually, and I don't want to like degrade anybody, but usually the people who say that they have a low level of intelligence. It's just and I've noticed that. I don't like to try to judge people about who, I think you can listen to anybody, but to neglect to say like, Kendrick is too deep and he's like talking, he's preaching too much.
He makes me think too much.
Yeah, it makes me think too
That's what
much.
you
I
said.
don't want to think that much. Kind of shows you where your level of intelligence is. But this album is straightforward. It's just like, yo, I think on Whacked Out Mirrors, he's just like, ain't no entendres. I'm just giving it to you how it is. Like, so I think the Super Bowl, man, I think it's gonna be theater. Um, I wonder how he's gonna handle Not Like Us. I think everybody's like trying to figure that out. And not because I think he's going to play it. And I think one thing that Drake is trying to do with this lawsuit, I think he's going to try to get a cease and a cease and desist on Kendrick for playing Not Like Us at the Super Bowl. I think that's what's going to happen if this thing goes forward. Um, and the way he did it just like so the way he did this legal motion, he's especially the second one with the defamation thing, he's basically forcing because initially people are like, well, he didn't initially add Kendrick Lamar to the legal motion. Well, when he put Not Like Us, he added Kendrick Lamar. So basically, what's going to happen is UMG, they're going to have to bring Kendrick Lamar in because UMG are going to be like, oh, we didn't have anything to do with Not Like Us. He was the one who wrote it. He's the one who created it. So you got to take it up with him. And they're gonna
That's
basically try to distance themselves from Kendrick as well. So Kendrick is gonna get pulled into this thing, whether he like. I think he knows. I think he's lawyer. I think his lawyers are trying to figure things out. But man, I think what he should do following this lawsuit, I think Kendrick should go for the kill. Like I think Kendrick should create another song that's deeper, more, more. No, for real. I think he should. And initially,
yo,
well, no, initially when this happened, I think we had a conversation, and I was just like, yeah, just I said Kendrick shouldn't respond right after the Heart Part Six, and we had this conversation on previous podcasts, and I was just like, yeah, Kendrick shouldn't respond to the Heart Part Six, just let it go, and he didn't. He never responded to the Heart Part Six directly, but I think with this lawsuit, I think Kendrick should create a song that would dismantle anything left of Drake. I think he should create a disc that's gonna basically, if he's living, I think he should just destroy any ounce of his career. Like I think he needs to create with this next GNX. With because I think people are saying it's going to be a deluxe part. I think it's going to be another part to this album. Uh, but I think Kendrick should go in for the kill. I think he should create something that's going to totally destroy this dude's whatever's left of him. Just dismantle him. Just like what was that? What was that game we played? Mortal Kombat. Finish
yeah,
him.
Mortal Kombat. Finish him.
Finish him.
Yeah.
Like finish this.
Oh,
Finish him. Get him out of here.
AR, I believe you 110,000% because on the album, Kendrick, he said, if signing a peace treaty, I'm gonna drag him down to hell with me, even if I have to. And I was like, that's the type of time that he's on. Like, he's not gonna let go. He's not.
I
Like,
mean, but
ever since not,
but
yeah,
the
no,
legal
what were you saying,
legal
AR?
motion, this legal motion gives him that door. He open like with this legal motion and possible lawsuit, he's opened the door. So Kendrick should just take him out. Like take him out. Like make it to the point where this dude can't even like Kendrick had a line like headshots for the year. You're gonna have to walk around like Daft Punk.
Mm.
Take him out. Like totally dismantle this dude in a way that no one has been dismantled before. Like I really hope that Kendrick goes there
Mm.
because what Drake has done, like I say, it's just not first of all, it's selfish. It's a mockery to the culture, but at the same time, it's just like it really it kind of puts hip hop in a bad space as well in terms of what happens next. Do we want artists suing over rap battles?
Yeah.
Like it's a whole culture of rap battling, right? That I think it's URL. Like it's like
Yep.
a lot of rap battle leagues that pop up, and they're very successful. And these artists aren't really like nationally known in the sense of creating songs, but they're big on the rap battle circuit. So what you're telling me now is that if Drake sets this precedent where if an artist loses a rap battle, he can go to court and file a lawsuit and say, I didn't like how he
Man.
did.
Nah,
So that's
man.
why I say I think Kendrick has to like. I'm hoping that Kendrick really puts an end to this guy in a way that no one has been put to before. Like
Yeah.
take his soul, like
Yeah.
finish him, get him up out of here, man.
Mm. Yeah, man. AR, man. I enjoy these conversations all the time. I do have to ask you this one question on the way out. Man, reincarnated, hearing that record, he killed it. And I thought about when Drake did the whole AI thing. Why do you think Pac means so much to a Kendrick, a Nip who would always talk about Pac, like, I want to be like Pac? Especially for those two kings of the West, I would say, with a Nip, a Kendrick, and seeing how Kendrick snapped. And Kendrick, of course, was talking about previously, don't play with Pac. Why does Pac mean so much to a Kendrick, to a Nip of those young brothers who were born in that 85, 84 age range? Like, why does Tupac mean so much to them?
Man, well, Pac was like he was kind of like he's like almost like a meteor, like a shooting star. Like people don't realize that Pac he was only famous for like 5 years, really.
That's insane.
Yeah,
He
like
died at what, 25?
he died at 25. I think he did Juice when he was like 19 or 20 or something like that, right? So he had like a 5 year run, right? And think of all the impact that he made in 5 years. Um, and yeah, I mean, he's somebody who pretty much and Pac is layered in a lot of ways too. In the sense that he comes from a place, right? He come like his mother was a Black Panther, and he was socially conscious in a lot of ways, and he also gravitated towards thug life and things of that nature. So he kind of represents different stages of blackness and what it means to be a black man in America. And so I think, for someone like a Kendrick or like a Nipsey, like they saw what Pac represented, the troubles that a black man would face, the mental health issues. I think Pac was like one of the first artists to really touch on mental health in a way where we weren't really talking about mental health, but Pac was talking about severe depression and what he was going through as a person from a mental standpoint and like trying to navigate these landscapes of violence and death within his community, trying to really uh, articulate that in a way. And like I said, that was something that was kind of new to hip hop at that time. And I think Kendrick understands that. I think Kendrick really gravitates towards what Tupac represented in a sense. And I had to kind of talk about like what Pitchfork. I mean, I don't read Pitchfork, but I think they a lot of people do read Pitchfork. They gave GNX like a 6.6, and then like the journalist who wrote the article, he basically said reincarnated is unlistenable, and I'm just like, yo,
What?
like, yeah, he wrote in his article, in his review that
Well, we
reincarnate.
already know what type of person this might,
Yeah, we
what they
already know.
look like, maybe.
We already,
Yeah,
but at the
yeah,
same time, it's just like it's unfortunate that people like that have those platforms where it's just
right.
like you didn't even take a time. You didn't even take time to listen to the meaning of reincarnated. Like it's so many layers to reincarnated. Like he's 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 putting himself as the devil.
Mm,
And if you listen to it, it's like he's like from a biblical standpoint, he talks, the angel, the devil was an angel first, and
yeah.
he fell out of heaven because of greed, things of that nature. Kendrick is pretty much saying him putting himself as the devil reincarnated in these musicians. First, I think the first one is like John Lee Hooker was a blues musician. I think the
Yeah.
second one is like Billie Holiday, and then in like the third verse, I think it's Kendrick. But then it's like at the same time, it's like the Kendrick, like God and the devil are having these conversations in the last verse. But if you're not really in tune to things and you just listening to it passively, you would say that it's unlistenable. But if you're not, but if you like if you're not if you're taking the time to understand what he's saying, the concept of it, I don't think we've ever had a song like that ever in hip hop. Like this song has never been created in hip hop. But for someone who writes for Pitchfork, they say that you can't listen to it or it's not pleasing to listen to. Um, it's just crazy to me. And it's just, but these people have these platforms to say nonsense like this. Uh, but yeah, I just want to call that out because it's just like, man, when I saw that, I'm just like, come on, man. Like, are you serious? Did you really like take time to listen to the concept of this song and what he's saying? This man is like, he's basically God having a conversation with the devil. Like, I mean, but if you're a passive listener, you don't understand that. You know what I'm saying? You don't understand that hip hop could be this deep, that hip hop can go to this level. And Kendrick
Mhm.
is taking hip hop to this level and showing that you can do a lot with it besides just doing surface level stuff.
Right.
Uh, so yeah, it's just,
Man.
that's why Kendrick is important. That's why we got to continue to kind of like, hype him and other artists who kind of represent that same thing. Not just creating surface level hip hop, but actually making you think about what's happening. Like, you know, so yeah, hopefully, this is like I say, this is the beginning. I think there is a part two. I think there is going to be a
Mhm.
part two that's going to drop, and like I said, I hope that Kendrick puts out a disc that's going to annihilate Drake. Like
Whew.
I want him to annihilate him. Like I just want,
Yeah.
I'm a hip hop fan. Like I
Yes,
said,
sir.
I followed the culture, for a long time. It's just like the move that Drake made was just so anti-hip hop. It was so anti-black that he don't. We got to get him up out of here, man.
Mm.
Like get him up out of here.
Man. Yo, AR, everything that you have predicted has come to pass throughout the past few months, man. So you already know any updates, I'll most definitely be contacting you, brother. You have just broken down this entire interaction perfectly every single time. So, man, we appreciate you greatly. On the way out, where can everybody follow you, keep in touch, all that good stuff, and also purchase Trap History as well?
Yeah, definitely follow my articles, Atlanta Daily World, purchase my book, Trap History, Atlanta Culture, and the Global Impact of Trap Music. You can purchase it today on Amazon. So yeah, check out the book, man. We go into the history of trap music, Atlanta culture, and pretty much how Atlanta hip hop came to be at a place where it is right now.
My God, man. AR, bro, you stay safe, keep vibing, and keep staying on Drake's neck. So if anything else comes out, man, keep writing those dope articles. But man, thank you again, brother, and you be safe.
All right, man. Much respect, bro.